All right,
And
hold on.
now you're all good. All right, you tell me when you've clicked
Yeah.
it, and then I will roll the intro. Just waiting, you know, wasting time before I roll this intro. How are we looking? I'm not seeing it quite yet on my feed
Give me like two
here.
seconds. Give me like two
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah, you're all good. I got to roll the intro anyway, so you're all good, man. Where does it say I'm live? Okay. I see it now. I am live. There we are. I This shit is lagging, like it, not the actual stream, but just the delay, which is a little ridiculous. We've been doing this scheduling thing the last couple of weeks. But how are you guys doing, D-bags? Hopefully you're doing well. We are back at it again with another episode of the Detox Podcast. Actually, episode 99. We are one short of the big time, 100 weeks, which is a little crazy. I'm your host, Darren Rita, so feel free to connect with me at any of the links down below. And if you're new here, you enjoy music, podcasts, or comedy, do consider subscribing. We do a whole lot of that around here, and we're on our way to 700 subs now. We're like 20, 25, 26 away, so maybe we can get there pretty soon here. But before I introduce you guys to my guest this week, who I'm really excited to speak to, I got to talk to you guys a little bit about car insurance. These days, it seems as if we're able to do more and more from home. So while you're at home, why aren't you saving money on your car insurance? Your hometown agency, Kenosha Auto Insurance, has specialized for years in simple, hassle-free car insurance using the latest in touch-free technology to help you and your family get the best rates. So what are you waiting for? Give them a call today at 262-448-4141. That's 448-4141. And the website is kenoshains.com. It should be on the screen right now. One last time, that's 262-448-4141. Give them a call. Tell them D-Rita, D-Talk sent you. The worst that can happen is they will get you the best rates. I promise. Now, with all that good stuff being out of the way, I'm pumped to introduce you guys to my guest this week. He and I actually have a good deal in common since we both host podcasts of our own. And you may even recognize his voice because he's one of the first people who actually interviewed me. And he did a very good job, I might add. Now, he's a very down-to-earth and supportive guy that I'm very thankful to have crossed paths with. So, without further ado, let's give a wet detox welcome to John from the Common People Podcast. What's going on, dog?
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's I'm so honored to be here, man. And I'm a bit nervous, but whatever. But I'm honored to be here, man. It's great.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and the nerves will subside, I'm sure, as we get going, man. As I just mentioned, you host the Common People Podcast. You had me on a while back. That's how we got to know each other a little bit. We've been talking ever since. I'm really thankful for the conversations we've been able to have, for the relationship we've been able to build. I really value you as a person, and especially your show and what you're trying to build with your show. So I just want to say thank you right before we start.
Hey, man. Thank you, man. Likewise. I think one of the main reasons why I reached out to you was because it's just I feel well, I didn't know much about you, but I saw your picture on that matchmaker website,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, man, this guy looks like pretty down to earth. And then I just started doing my research, and then once I saw the documentary, I was like, oh, he's just like he's so chill, man. Given that you're a recording artist and you're not so cocky per se, because there's a lot of people who like have one song and then they're on top of the world. But
That's fair. I mean, I definitely am cocky. It's just in other things, I guess, other aspects of life. But I appreciate it all the same, man. I really do. How have you been since? I know you've been interviewing a lot of people. You said before we went live that you're looking to book some more people soon. But how has things been with you and the podcast?
it's been great. I think a lot better than I expected. Definitely. When I first had the initial thought of starting the podcast, um, I was like, it's not even gonna happen. It's gonna go nowhere. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's the same thought most people have. I was like, it's gonna go nowhere.
What made you want
Um,
to like take the leap in the first place then?
I think it was just out of nowhere. I think it was I woke up one day and I was so bored, and my cousin had texted me and he was like, "Let's do a podcast." And for
Okay.
him to say that, I was like, "Oh, this kid must be fucking bored out of his mind too."
Yeah.
And so we did it. We jumped on and we did it. And I was like, you know what? Instead of putting it away, why not just upload it? Like I'm gonna do everything right now.
Yeah.
And I did created my my whole name and did everything, and I just uploaded it. And then from there, it gave me the motive or to keep just going. And
See, that's the thing. I talk about that all the time on this podcast is that first step is so crucial because it's like we put that first thing off for so long. Creatives do it all the time, man. We all put this, whatever the first step is, we push that back as far back as we can because if we then we never have to start. But the second you choose a date or you start, then it kind of, even like you said, you did the first one, you're like, oh shit, well, I gotta kind of keep going now. Like
Right,
I gotta keep
exactly.
it up. And so it's like when you kind of have to put a little bit of pressure on yourself, I think, to keep moving forward. But you mentioned the name, you came up with the name and everything. How did you come up with the name, the Common People Podcast? Where's that come from?
So that was actually a bit tough. I think that's like the toughest part about anything is coming up with the name.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I didn't think about it at the time was when you come up with the name, it's gonna also implement a concept of your show. So you can't name something like the Misfit Hour, which was an idea I had back, a couple, months ago, and I can't. That has to that apply
That has a
applies to
feel to it.
concept.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
has a feel
yeah,
to it. You kind of have to
exactly.
do. You'd have to have people that almost don't make sense talking to each other, but maybe would. I feel like there's definitely a podcast that could be titled that, and it would be fun. But that might be a struggle, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and so I came up with the idea. I'm just so fascinated by talking to people, and I was like, you know what, I want to interview just regular people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you see the Rogan podcast, and I know we've talked about this before about people coming on and starting a podcast that already have prior fucking fans and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they get famous people on there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, why not interview a regular person? And so that's why I came up with the Common People. And I was like, yeah, let's just call it the Common People Podcast. And the people I have on now are just ordinary people, man, that I feel deserve a lot of credit for what they do.
That's really cool, man. That's what do you think is like if you had to describe the goal of the podcast to somebody, we've got some listeners here that maybe they're looking for another podcast in their life to go check out from time to time. What would you describe as like the goal when you sit down with somebody for the Common People Podcast? If you're going to record an episode.
I think mainly is to try to put a lot of, I guess, give them credit for what they do, their whatever their occupation may be. And I know some of the episodes I have are with buddies, and some of these episodes will be just like conversations.
Yeah.
But I mean that's fine as well. But the most of the episodes I have, you're gonna see that they're just different people from walks of life. Darren Rita, a recording artist, fellow podcaster. I just had Doug Crow on. He helps see executives and entrepreneurs publish their books. He's traveled to like 42 countries, and you
Wow.
just these different people, man, that just are from all walks of life. And so I think that the goal is to definitely get their story out there.
Yeah, you're like highlighting, not necessarily. I mean, I guess like everyday people as well, but kind of just completely different walks of life, like you mentioned. Just you never know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get somebody who, like you said, like myself, a recording artist one day. You might get one of your buddies the next, who maybe has a completely different life experience, and then you might get some guy who's ultra successful, traveling the world, and all these other things. I think that's really cool, and that's something that I think is fun in guest-driven podcasts because I like a lot of podcasts that aren't guest driven as well, but I think there is something very interesting about guest driven podcasts in that way when it's kind of like, oh, who's going to be on this week, what are they going to bring of value,
Exactly.
and I think that's kind of fun.
And although
um,
I think guest-driven podcasts are probably the hardest to manage, I think in my opinion, just because it's just there's a lot more that goes to making it happen. I think.
yeah, I agree about I'm making it happen, and I would disagree in where it might be slightly easier to grow them. I think because I know a
That's
lot
true.
of people that try and start a podcast with their buddy, and if they don't have like a goal of the podcast or like a theme or anything, they're just like, yeah, people are just gonna listen to me and my homie shoot the shit every week, and it's like it's great to have episodes like that. I have episodes like that. You have episodes like that, but if there's no like what's the poll, after like your friends outside of your friends and family of each of those people, you're not getting anybody new unless you have like a clip that goes viral or something else like that, right? But when you kind of, I think that's where we're a little bit spoiled in doing guest driven podcasts where it's like even if John from the Common People podcast only got one person that follows the Common People podcast, that one person, if they're a diehard fan, they're gonna come over when we do a video like this and we do a collaboration podcast. They're going to be like, okay, I want to go see John on this podcast. And they're going to come do it, and vice versa. And so I think that's what's really cool about guest driven podcasts, where we're kind of lucky in that sense, where it's like, I might not want to see every single person that's on Joe Rogan, but if somebody that I'm a fan of
Exactly.
is going on, I'm going to go watch that shit. That's going to be
Oh hell
awesome.
yeah, hell yeah. And I think a big thing I struggled with when starting the podcast, given that it was a guest sort of idea, was how I was gonna apply myself. Like, what do I have to? What level of professionalism, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that now I'm starting to look at. And
What are you finding? What are you feeling? Do you think that is it more on the preparation side of things, or you try to offer a counter perspective when they're on, or what is it? Are you kind of just trying to ride with whatever they say?
I think, you know, I think I just ride with what they say, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I would like for things to get a bit more raw.
Okay.
And that's where now I'm starting to come up with an idea of, I don't know if I want to include segments into this podcast or just completely drift off into another one, but still running this Common People podcast, where it would just be me kind of just going off the rails, you know, like a complete uncensored sort of thing with
Yeah.
my raw opinion, and have people on that will give their raw opinion as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could definitely bring that into what you're doing. I mean, I know segments is something that I go back and forth with all the time. I always want to incorporate segments, but then I scrap a bunch of them after I come up with them, and so that's kind of where they all die on the whatever that phrase is. They all end up on the chopping room, fucking floor, whatever it is. I don't know what I'm saying, but basically, I think you could definitely do something like that, and I think that's the best is being able to incorporate your own perspective. I think there's like a level of authenticity and honesty there. Because I think what you're doing is really good. And if you're feeling like maybe you just need to assert yourself a little bit more, just create a space where, it's your space. You could do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The only fear I have is the attention. I feel like there might be certain people that I might want to have on,
Mm-hmm.
aside from this like uncensored part, the segments, just to keep it more professional, and they might take a look at that uncensored
Mm.
segment, and they might be like, "Ooh, this guy is not like this guy's a little bit fucking lunatic. I don't want to,
Yeah.
deal with this guy." So that's probably my only fear of implementing it with the Common People podcast.
Hey, that's
So
fair, man. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, you love Joe Rogan. You're a fan of Joe Rogan's. I mean, he's
exactly,
not at all censored, and I mean, he's had people from all walks of life on his show, very prestigious people, and he's also had some crazy people on there as well. So I think like there's if you're just authentically you, I think that's the best bet. Because I know it does suck. I've had people. I think we talked about this before, but I've had people be like they've looked back at a couple episodes and been like, oh, I don't want to do your podcast because this episode you did with so and so was kind of raunchy, and I'm like, okay, but did you listen to it? Did you laugh? Like, did you whatever? Like, we were being ourselves. So if you don't want to, if you're not about that, if you can't have a good time, then I don't want you on anyways.
right.
And that's just how I look at it. But I know you're doing a semi different thing. Speaking of interviewing people and guests and whatnot, what would be your dream interview? Who would you love to like do a deep dive on, and you would be like absolutely blown away if you got them on the Common People podcast? Anybody, if you could have
Um.
anybody.
All right. I'm gonna have to give you three, man.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to give you three because there's no fucking way I just say one. Definitely amongst the three, Steve-O has to be one of them. I am a
Okay.
huge fan of Steve-O. I definitely like his way. I think he's been through some shit, and definitely
He's got a podcast now. He used to be
yeah,
a guest for like when everybody on YouTube started doing podcasts. I think he like went on everybody's podcast. Like
exactly,
he's
yeah.
he's he's a great guy. He seems like a great guy. I don't know him, but
And actually, he was just on a podcast, Two Bears in One Cave, with Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura. But
okay. Oh,
um
very cool.
but yeah, Steve definitely one of them, and Isabel May is another one, and probably Millie Bobby Brown would be the third one.
Okay. I know Bobby Brown. I don't know who is the second one that you mentioned?
Isabel May, she is an actress. She's I'm not gonna say she's like super fucking famous, but she's definitely she's got fame compared to
What's she been
us.
in?
She was in I think her most hit show was a show called Alexa and Katie on
Oh, okay.
Netflix. So
Interesting.
yeah, I saw one interview with her. It was about like 30 minutes maybe, and I was like, I would love to have her on, man. Like, she's just
Yeah.
so down to earth. She's awesome. She likes old school music. She plays the piano. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. But who do you get inspiration from as an interviewer? Like who do you listen to that you think does it really obviously, Rogan, but like anybody else that like has you kind of inspired you in the way that you interview people?
Dax Shepard.
Dax Shepard. Okay.
For sure. The armchair expert without a doubt. That's like the first guy that came to my like fuck Joe Rogan at this point. It's the first guy that came into my mind. Dax
Yeah.
Shepard, man.
Okay. I was big on Charlemagne the God was somebody that I really enjoy the way he interviews. I mean, he used to do a lot of like more ridiculous questions, I feel like, when the Breakfast Club, because they have like kind of a team interviewing people, you know.
Right.
DJ Envy and Angela Yee both bring different things to the table, and then Charlemagne kind of got to just be like I feel like they kind of lobbed it up to him, and he would dunk it every interview, in a way. But yeah, I think I really drew a lot of inspiration from him starting out. Like that's somebody I really valued his interviews. I thought he did a really good job. But I think what Rogan does really well is that he just listens. What I
Mm-hmm.
think he doesn't do a great job of is like he just kind of lets people go sometimes, and like doesn't challenge them at all. And I'm like, Joe, what are you
Well,
doing,
I mean,
man?
well, okay. I think that's like I think I do the same thing
Mhm.
just because I think there is a sense of pride when it comes to saying like this is my platform.
Yeah.
Like this is like the Common People podcast. Like you could go on and like you said, yeah, obviously like if I have an opinion and I think you're crazy, like okay, chill out. But at the
Mhm.
same time, if I don't think you're going off the rails necessarily and you're saying some wild shit either way, I'd be like, whatever, man. This is my platform. I'm the fucking boss.
Yeah.
What? Like no one's gonna like well, who's gonna come take this away from me? So I
Yeah.
think there's a sense of pride there.
Yeah, I just think he gotta sometimes like people will just say some straight up wild shit and he just doesn't check them, and I'm like, and I know he knows what they're saying is bullshit, and I'm like, bro, come on, check him a little bit. But enough with my critiques of Joe Rogan. You've had some serious critiques when we were talking privately about the Paul brothers, specifically Jake Paul. You said you wanted to go off on this kid. What is
Yeah,
it that you have to
man.
say about Jake Paul? What is it that is bothering you about him?
Oh man. I don't even know where to start, man. I could just start unloading on this kid. I don't know where to start, man. I think definitely. I know he made his sort of presence around him calling out Conor McGregor. I think it was. I think that's when I sort of started getting a wind of him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of like YouTube and like been following like a lot of different like YouTubers and stuff for a while. So I've been aware of him because a lot of my favorite YouTubers kind of clown him all the time. But yeah, that's when he got a little bit more mainstream, was him trying to fight Conor McGregor after he fought Nate Robinson.
Yeah,
So
and that call out was like super vulgar from what people were saying. Like called out his wife and all that. And you know, well, like it's understandable. You want to get the attention of someone at
yeah,
like at the level of Conor. You're gonna have to come up with some wild shit.
yeah,
And that's when I sort of like I'm a huge Conor fan, all right? Like I'm a huge Conor fan. Just like I am with Eminem, that's just like I am a huge fan. So when he called out Conor McGregor, I stood up immediately from my chair and I was like, this guy has to go, man. I was like, this fucking guy has to go. And I was like, I almost
ride or
felt like
die.
I was almost gonna like call Conor up, man, pick up my phone and be like, yo, you gotta fucking get rid of this clown, but
Yeah.
he's dreaming at that point.
Would you pay
And
for a fight if he fought him?
oh fuck it, I would make it my mission to be there in person, man. Like
Oh man.
I don't care what I have to, because I'm telling you, it's just like when you're a diehard fan of someone, it's like, hey, you're immediately stick up for that person. And like went weeks when we didn't hear nothing from Conor, and I was getting worried. I was like, what the fuck's going on, man? And then like here, Jake Paul is continuing to do his fucking YouTube sort of publicity shit, you know,
Mhm.
to try to get his attention more and more. And I'm like, I was getting worried. Well, not worried, but I was sort of like frustrated. Like, why isn't Conor fucking doing something, man?
Yeah.
And then eventually Conor comes out and he says like the most boss shit ever. He actually like almost congratulates Jake Paul. And I was like, oh, like, I've heard of that kid. Like, good for him. Kind of
Yeah.
saying like I'm so high, like so
Yeah.
high, like it took this long to get, for it to touch my radar.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I pictured in when I first heard him kind of going at Connor. I didn't think Connor was going to respond. I mean, like if I make a diss record for Jay-Z, like I just start dissing Jay-Z, I don't think Jay-Z's going to respond. Like
Right.
that's obviously that's a maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but I think in the sense of like as far as fighting goes, that's like the difference between Conor McGregor and Jake Paul. It's a
Right.
similar gap. So I didn't expect him to respond at all. And then he couldn't get anybody. Apparently, I I don't know this. This is obviously not 100%, but I guess he wasn't able to get the people he wanted to fight him, so he ended up getting Ben Askren, and Ben Askren was like the perfect matchup for him since he like literally just gotten like a hip surgery and was retired for however many years. He's, I mean, he's a world class athlete, but one of the worst strikers in all of MMA, and
Exactly.
so it was like a perfect matchup for somebody who has like been training very excessively in this one form of fighting that is boxing, and fight somebody who's like worst case, like the worst boxer in all of MMA. So I mean, and he was old and whatever. So I still thought he was maybe gonna win actually, but yeah, it was pretty bad. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
anything from that fight.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Like it's those kind of things where you're sticking up for, like for me, I'm sticking up for Ben Askren, and I'm like, yeah, this guy is gonna fucking knock this guy out. And as soon as he gets knocked out, you like put your phone down, and you're like, I gotta stay off social media for a couple of days.
Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely tough. I think everybody just wants to see Jake get knocked out, and I actually give him a lot of respect in that sense that he's been able to figure out how to monetize people's hatred for him. Because before the boxing stuff, I mean, like I know like he might not have been on your radar or a lot of fight people's radar, but a lot of people in the YouTube world did not like this guy, and it's, I think it was harder. He was becoming not irrelevant, but he would just do a really shitty thing every couple of months, and that's how he would kind of get some buzz again. And eventually, all the commentator channels that kind of police YouTube and like kind of shit on people like that and make jokes on their behalf, they lose interest because it's this, you can tell he's trying for it. And so I think that he already had an audience of people that really disliked him, and what it like I can't think of a better way to monetize their hatred than like the opportunity for them to see you getting knocked out.
Right.
Obviously then he's picking very smart fights right now to fight people that
I
he
mean,
can beat, but
yeah, it's I just don't understand what his problem is with the UFC. Like, all right, you're a boxer, all right, then stick to that. Don't start like, I mean, obviously publicity is key, right?
yeah.
But like Dana White said, why don't you just fight a fucking boxer? Like that's simple, man. And I know
Yeah.
I don't like boxing. I think it's very underwhelming. But if there's one boxer root for 100% is Canelo Alvarez, a Mexican boxer. I love that guy, and I know he even, you could fact check me on this, I could be wrong, but he even I guess called out Jake Paul and was sort of saying like, why don't you jump in the ring with me?
Oh, I'm sure he did. I know a lot of different
It's
boxers
like,
did. The thing is, he doesn't want to,
yeah,
because that's you asked like, what is his problem with the UFC? I don't think he has a problem with the UFC. I think he loves the UFC because he knows that those guys. I mean, it's a different sport. A lot of people don't understand that it is a different sport. You have to worry about a lot of other things. Not to say that one is necessarily harder than the other, because sometimes like being confined to only focus on the things you do with boxing could be harder for some people. Whatever, but he basically knows that these people aren't boxers, and he has been just training with some of the world's best trainers and coaches to box. So it's like he knows if he can get somebody who is not going to be quite up to par with him boxing, but they have maybe the same level of stardom as a big UFC person might, or fighter might. Why would he risk fighting somebody that's going to beat the shit out of him in boxing? These guys have been doing it their whole life. They're gonna take him easy, and that's not even disrespectful to him. That's just the truth. Like, these guys have been boxing since some of them since they're like 13. They're gonna kill him if they get in the ring with him.
I mean,
But
yeah.
so if he could find somebody, who maybe is great in the UFC, maybe is great ground fighter, maybe is great at submissions and things of that nature, but they can't strike, and they don't have a great distance, or maybe they're not in the kind of stamina that you need for it to go 15 rounds at boxing, whatever. That's a great fight for him, because he knows that they're going to bring people in. He knows it's going to get the rest of the UFC pissed, and then more people. He has the choice to fight between more people now, and he's going to get an easy win. So that's what he wants, man, and that's what I think everybody is falling victim to. It seems like Dana White's pretty much over it. So I saw an interview where he said, like, stop fucking asking me. This guy calls me every day. Like, stop asking me about it. He's a joke. I guess Triller. I saw something that Jake left Triller, which was like his big thing. So I don't know if that was true or not, but I have to look into that a little bit.
Did you see him when he pulled up on Dylan Dennis and he
Yes.
threw whatever? Oh my God, man! I think even Joe Rogan talks about it, kind of saying like, why would you want to fuck with the guy like Dylan, man? Like this
Yeah.
guy is a world class grappler, man. Like, can you imagine if he got his hands on Jake Paul? It's just like
Oh yeah, I
he
mean
would be in jail, man.
that's what even I even laughed, and it's actually like probably like the hardest I've laughed in a while was during this press conference with Ben Askren, and and I still believe Ben when he said this. He was like, you know, this is it's a good thing we're boxing. If I wanted to, if I ran into Jake in an alley and I wanted to do a homicide, I could do a homicide.
Yeah.
And I've never heard someone say do a homicide, but it just cracked me up. And I believe him. I'm sure if it was like in without the restrictions that boxing kind of puts on you, I don't doubt that he would have beaten him. But what do you think, like influencer celebrity boxing? Like, what are your thoughts on it in general? You think that it's a good thing for the sport? I know some people think it's a really bad for the sport. Other people think that it's bringing new eyes, so it's a good thing for boxing. And I'm kind of on the fence, more so leaning towards it's a good thing.
Um. So I think I'm gonna have to stick with what Dana White said. I know Dana White. I don't know if it was this last UFC pay per view, but he did mention that there was a lot going on when Ben Askren fought Jake Paul, given the setting, the commentating. It was just I feel like to me I don't know boxing that much, but I feel like to me it was just an overall very weird setting. The
That it was,
commentating,
one
the,
hundred
the
percent.
commentating was annoying as fuck. Like, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Snoop Dogg,
I
and
think
all that.
Snoop was the saving grace of the whole thing. The
I
rest of the guys, their only joke was that Snoop was there. They just kept joking about how he's there, and it was
um
annoying.
but in general, I think it's sort of ridiculous. I appreciate the professionalism of like watching a boxing match, and given to someone who honestly doesn't really like boxing, but I appreciate the professionalism of like when not too long ago Canelo fought Billy Joe Saunders. I think that was a huge fight, and I loved the professionalism. And then if you put this Jake Paul celebrity sort of setting next to this, it just looks very childish to me. But
I can understand that. I think childish is a good way to put it, and I think maybe that's what they're going for. I think with at least with Triller, I know when DAZN did it when they hosted the events of like the Logan and KSI fights, those were a little bit more like professional, I guess. They were handled in a similar way. I mean, DAZN does a lot of fighting stuff. Triller, for people that don't know, and I only know this because I'm in music, it was like similar to TikTok, but it was I think it actually predated TikTok as an app, but then they kind of switched to try to copy TikTok. But it was like a for artists, if I had a song coming out on Friday, I can upload my song on Triller and like make some videos of me dancing to it in the studio to like promo my song before. I know a lot of rappers used it. And so then they kind of transitioned into like a more of a video function when everybody thought TikTok was going to get banned. And then TikTok didn't get banned, so they were
I
like,
know that
"Fuck."
sucks.
Yeah, they were like, "Fuck, we got to do something." And then they decided to throw their hat in the ring, literally, with the boxing stuff. And Noel Miller from the TMG podcast made a great joke about how they like you could tell everybody who was like involved in that event had never like seen a boxing match before, like had never watched one, because like even the kid, like he was like it was probably some, I think he, not to talk about a podcast on another podcast, but I believe he literally like was clowning on like the fact that there was a one of the refs was GoPro'd, like he had a GoPro on his chest.
I didn't
like
even see
like
that.
what kind of, but like you know that had like that is somebody who has like never watched fighting, who would be like, this is a great, why has no one thought of this before, why has no one thought to put a GoPro on the rep, because it's fucking dumb. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't add anything. And I think like even like half the shots were like beneath the ropes, and like just like these really like obscure weird shots where like, you couldn't even
Yeah.
see what's going on, and you could tell it was a lot of people that maybe have filmed a lot of other things but not necessarily a boxing match, or if that's just the direction they were given from Triller. But I think they're trying to like, you know, appeal to a younger audience, and maybe they successfully did that. I thought it was funny. The whole thing was just kind of a joke to me. But you know, I don't know. I have no idea.
I
So
mean,
we. Oh, what were you saying?
just yeah, just I saw this not because I know you mentioned the KSI and the Logan Paul. You know
Yeah.
what? Took me a while to figure out they were brothers. I know it sounds stupid, but I
Oh,
was
Logan and Jake Paul.
yeah, it took me a while. I was like, man, these guys have the same last name, and yeah, but whatever. You can shit on me that
Yeah, yeah.
later, but I don't know if you saw when they fought. I just saw this on Instagram, which was like the funniest fucking thing. Um, there was a round where I guess KSI had punched Logan like past the bell,
Mm-hmm.
and Jake Paul comes running in, and he runs in and storms KSI, but he stops himself at the middle of the ring. And the caption said that Jake stops himself. I thought that
Yeah.
was the
No,
funniest thing
well,
ever.
that's the thing that's interesting with Jake was like, I don't know if you saw this, but obviously Logan's fighting Floyd Mayweather
Yeah.
here in a couple of weeks, and June 6th, I think. And they had their first like press conference where they got to see each other face to face a couple weeks back, and Jake like pulled this huge stunt, like took off Floyd Mayweather's hat, like got in his face and was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I got your hat." Got like some like weirdo like fifth grade shit. I don't even know
Uh,
how to describe it. And Floyd and his people were not playing that, so Jake ends up catching a fucking Floyd Mayweather hook to the face, and his face is bleeding, and he's sitting there like crying, going, "I got your hat, I got your hat," and it's like the funniest, like saddest, like weirdest thing ever. And I mean, again, like I understand, like great business move on his part in doing that, but like I don't understand how he's like still like unironically saying "I got your hat" after he is like holding a black eye and like is crying, literally crying, and I guess he's not allowed at the fight now.
and then he tattooed himself, right? He tattooed himself like
Yeah,
I tried as well.
and he posted it. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was good for him. He capitalized off the moment, but yeah, I think like he's great at capitalizing off moments like that. I don't know about fighting and whatnot, but I know Floyd Mayweather is not playing with that, and he said that he would fight both of them in the same night, and I thought that was fucking hilarious. And I wish he would, because that would be so fucking funny. Because I know he's not gonna drop Logan in one round. I know he's gonna let it play out for a minute and let everybody get a
I mean,
show.
listen, I don't like Mayweather. I don't think he's not, but again, I don't know boxing, so I can't really say. But as a person and as a fighter, I don't like him. I don't like the way he fights. He fights like Billy Joe Saunders. I just don't like the way he fights.
What about
But
the way he fights? I'm not very well versed in the realm of fighting. It's just been all over the news, so I've been slowly diving in.
well, I mean, I'm not too familiar with boxing either. I know. When it comes to mixed martial arts, you have your basic boxing techniques, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to actually boxing, it's a whole fucking craft.
Yeah.
But I just don't like the way he fights. He's a very hit and run kind of fighter.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't really appreciate. That's why I like watching Canelo fight, because Canelo he's like a Mexican warrior. That guy does not run. He's just right there in your face. Um, and I mean, sure, he's undefeated, but I mean,
See,
he's
my thing is, I don't really. I guess maybe this is me not being really at all in the fighting scene at all, but I kind of just appreciate people that win at anything, and regardless of like the way he fights, I just think it's impressive that everybody, because he's built different than another boxer. Everybody's
mhm,
built different,
right.
literally like physically, like height and stature and build and everything. So I think he fights the fight that his body lets him, and I think he's a lot faster than people. He's a smart guy, and from what I've seen, again, being someone who's not super well versed in fighting, it appears that yeah, he does. He kind of will jab and go, and he kind of waits for his moment to strike. He kind of chops at you the whole fight until he's ready to really take you out, and his stamina is just like impeccable, and I think that's where his biggest strength is.
But as far as if it ever happens, Mayweather and Jake Paul, you could count on me being on Floyd Mayweather's side. Like, I don't like the guy, but if you put Jake Paul in front of him, I will be cheering on Mayweather. Like,
the
he
the
just
enemy of, or the what is it, the friend of your enemy is your friend, or whatever, something like that. So
yeah.
you'll team up with him as long as he's going after Jake Paul.
Hmm.
So aside from that stuff, aside from all the fighting and everything, kind of back to the Common People podcast, which John here is the host of, for anybody who's just now tuning in. What's like the end game with that podcast? What's like the best case scenario? Obviously, as people, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I know for myself, in trying to start and run my podcast, I'd love for this, as well as my other media endeavors, to be able to pay the bills, so that's full time. That'd be what I'm doing, because I'm already putting much more time into this than I'm doing anything else. So I'd love if it would actually, you know, provide me in that way.
You know,
Um,
and I respect you for that, man. I like my hats off. Like it's very admirable because I've always told people you have to be in love with the process, you know, and like, and
yeah,
excuse me if I get a little bit like motivational freak right now, but I think it's so important. You have to be involved. I mean, you have to be in love with the process. If not, then you will see no end result. And I think that goes as far as like working out or anything like
yeah.
this. You know, I do believe you're gonna make it big. I do, you know, because example, man, your prime example. You just got to be in love with the process, man. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And so like in terms of your podcast, what do you if you could what is your idea of right now? Obviously it changes as we get closer to accomplishing these things, but like what would be like the best case scenario down the line? Where do you see like you made it? Where's like I made it with the Common People podcast? What does that look like?
um, Man, that's good. That's a good question, man. You know, I've never really. I'm honestly so like baffled by where I've gotten now.
Mhm.
Like, given the fact that I could go to Spotify and see my podcast there, or go to Apple Podcasts and it be there, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh shit, like this is amazing. Like, I remember when I told a family member, like, oh, I have a podcast. They're like, all right, cool. Like, they didn't think much of it, and then I was like, oh, check it out on Spotify or Apple Podcast. They're like, shut up, and I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah, there's a
check it
bit
out.
of prestige that comes with that. You know, people are
Yeah,
always a little bit more likely to check it out when that's involved.
yeah. And as far as like the goal, I would like to make, or yeah, I'd like for it to be able to pay for some stuff regarding like if I want to get new equipment, a new mic, or if I want to get a new setup. I would like for the revenue of that podcast to be able to pay for that.
Mhm.
So that's sort of
Just
my
it
goal.
be
Like,
self-sufficient in that way.
yeah. So right now, I guess a small goal I would have is I, I want to buy a new boom arm, right? Like that's sort of what I'm going for.
Mhm.
But I'm not gonna buy it with my money. I told myself I'm not gonna buy it with my money unless this one like just fucking breaks out of
Breaks.
nowhere.
Yeah.
But until then, I would like my goal to be maybe one day my podcast will pay for it. So that's sort of what I'm waiting on.
That's a good way to look at it. I know you know, I always you know, like you said, you got to be in love with the process, and I think that's a good way of kind of challenging yourself. Being like I'm not going to bail myself out with paying for this boom arm. I'm going to work my ass off until my podcast can pay for the boom arm itself. I think that's cool.
Exactly.
I think that's admirable. I know you know, I definitely have a similar thing like I was saying. I would love for my media content to just be what I do. That's kind of like my biggest goal. And I think, you know, if I could accomplish anything with this podcast, it would be to just provide a little, whether it's an hour or a couple hours, however long a conversation is in a week, just provide a little like gateway to something like an escape for people to just go and either be informed or have fun, whatever it is. Just like, oh man, every week I get to be entertained for this amount of time. I really I like this guy. Seems like a stand-up dude, and I know he's gonna have good people on. And if he doesn't have a good person on, I know he's gonna shit on him and like whatever it is, you know, like just have fun.
Right.
And I want it to be its own thing. What about you in that sense? You know, aside from monetary things.
Same thing. Like I mentioned earlier, I think it's important to get people's story out there, man. And I'm I think I'm so fascinated by getting to learn from people that, I speak Spanish as well. I'm a fluent Spanish speaker. So I've even thought about doing a Spanish podcast with my dad, because I know my dad, he's also, kind of helping me with the process of doing this, like the background. It's all to him, thanks to him, he helped me get this done. So I've even thought about doing like a Spanish version of my podcast with Spanish speakers, because that's how much I want people to see that
Yeah.
ordinary people have so much more.
Well, you should you know what you should do? You should try and like transcribe your episodes in Spanish as well to make it more like accessible. Like if I was, you know, bilingual, that's something I would consider. I know a couple people that do actually do that. That they do. His name David Pakman. He's like a political commentator, but he does his entire show, and then he also does like a Spanish version of the entire show where he just literally does his exact same commentary, but he does it in Spanish for his Spanish speaking audience, which I think is pretty cool. So that I think that's a really, those are some very positive goals, and hopefully, down the line you can start achieving some of those and taking them off the list, and we get to
Hell
hear
yeah.
about them and have you come back on and stuff like that. You mentioned that you learn a lot and you love learning from people. What's the biggest thing that you've learned from interviewing different people?
Well, yeah, that's each episode is different because I don't know for those who speaking to my audience or anyone for those who make it to the end of the show, I always try to ask my guest if there's one piece of advice you could give the audience on life, what would it be? And the most recent one, Doug Crow, he's traveled to so many countries, so I'm very anxious to see like what has he learned that he could tell us. And very simple, we're all the same. That's one thing that stuck to me is we're all the same, man. Like no matter where we are, we're all the same. We're humans. We we're all the same. That's simple.
That's
And
good. I like that.
that to me has stuck with me because it's like we're so quick to judge. We're so quick to judge us,
Yeah.
nefarious little humans. We're so quick to judge others, but in reality, you're just supposed to be like, you know what, that guy is just like me. He's just in a much more dire situation than I am. I'm fortunate enough to be in a much better place than he is.
Yeah, we all do what we think is right. I like that. I mean, it's we're all the same. That's on brand too with the Common People podcast. When you get some merch going, you're gonna have to put that on the back or something. Like Common People podcast on one arm, we are all the same on the other arm.
Hell
That's
yeah, man.
that's good. That's good. I like
And
that.
I'll give you an example. Last night I was at work and I was cleaning up, and because I work at a restaurant, and I was cleaning up, and someone knocked on the back door because restaurants always keep the back door open, the screen door. And someone knocked on it, and it was some dude that was asking me if we had leftover fries or something like that. And it's sort of in a ghetto area, so I was trying to check this dude out, kind of being like, okay, is he just because people go there and they try to fuck you over for some stuff.
Hmm.
And so I went and I was like, hey, like there's this guy asking for some fries or whatever. And my dad sort of like, I told him he's only speaking Spanish. So my dad immediately thought, kind of saying like, hey man, maybe he just got here from his home country or something like that. Like we got to help him out. And, since obviously we don't own the place, we can't just give food away. Right.
Yeah.
So my dad kind of went up to him. My dad gave him $5 and was like, hey man, just go buy yourself something. And that to me was like, I think that example, we're the same because if I was in his situation, I would be doing the same thing. That makes us
Hmm.
the same. It's just at the moment I'm in a much better place than he is.
Yeah.
Fortunately. So I thought, and in that moment, I thought about that we're all the same because I would be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
So
that's a good way of looking at it, man. We're not all as different as we think we are. We all got to eat. We all need water. We're all living under the same sun, I guess, right? I mean, it's
exactly,
kind of
exactly.
how it is. Speaking of similarities, kind of switching gears a little bit. You've been a big fan and you post about her semi frequently. Olivia Rodrigo has been topping the
Yeah.
charts. We talked about her a couple months back when she had Driver's License come out, and people were really hating on the song, and I was sticking up for the song because I think anybody who's if a song goes number one, it's usually got some redeeming qualities,
Hell
and
yeah.
and I
Who
think
is
she's
hating on
great,
the song? Who is
dude.
hating on that? Put them in front of me, please, man. I want to see them.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. She's extremely talented. But she recently that with her newest song, "Good for You," which sounds suspiciously like another very popular song. If you have you heard any of this?
No, I'm not.
So her new song, "Good for You," sounds like suspiciously like "Misery Business" by Paramore. Um, and I don't know if you know that song off the top of your head, but you have to look it up after this. And
Yeah,
it's
I
people
will.
have people have broken it down. First off, they have the same chord progression, but I mean, there's tons of songs that have the same chord progression. You can't, copyright chords. Um, but the melody of the lead vocal, especially in the chorus,
Uh-huh.
is like off by two notes in the Olivia Rodrigo song compared to the Misery Business. Like it is so similar, and a lot of people were like, "Where have I heard this song before?" A lot of people thought that maybe she was doing a cover, that it was some new remix version of something. No, it's a totally different song, but it is so heavily inspired by this that people were like, people are pushing for the singer for Paramore to like go out and try and potentially like sue her. I don't think she will, because I think it's honestly a
Oh,
plus for both people,
oh
because
shit! Don't even
Olivia's
get
got a
me
great
started.
song.
Yeah, don't even get me started on my girl. Aside from me having a huge crush on her, don't even fuck with her because I think she's got some power.
Yeah,
Um,
she'd be fine. First, and secondly, I think it would be stupid to do that, because I think a lot of people have gone back and listened to Paramore's music a little bit more because of this song, and I think that's good. I think that's the best part. I mean, that's like with sampling music, when rappers sample a song and flip the sample, then someone's like, "Wow, that sounds really cool. I feel like I've heard that before," and then they go back and listen to the original sample, and I think it's a net positive for everybody involved.
so I first heard of her on her Disney show High School Musical the series.
Oh, you are
Uh,
you a fan? I've never
uh,
seen it.
uh, I'm watching it. Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm a fan, but I'm watching it. I watched the whole first season, and,
What
and
is
you
it
know what?
about? Is it
I
about? Is it
listen.
like High School Musical? Because I've seen like, I really don't know what happens in High School Musical. I can't even lie. I know what happens in like the first one a little bit, and the second one was on Disney Channel all the time when I was a kid, so I would watch that one all the time. So I know that
So
movie, but I don't know what they're really about.
it's nothing like High School Musical. That was my fear. I hate High School Musical. Like, it's just too much for me. I don't like it. It's too cheesy. But this is about high school students who are doing the musical High School Musical. So,
Okay.
yeah, so it's like I don't know if you ever heard of Glee. Have you ever heard of that Glee, the show Glee? It's a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
like that. Um, but all right, listen, I might expose myself here, but it's fine. So it's fine. I'm actually a huge romance kind of person, man. Like I will love all things action, all things like scary, like movies. But if you dazzle a little bit of romance in there, you got me, man.
You're a
And
sucker for a good rom com. Is that what you're
hell
saying?
yeah, man. Yeah, hell yeah. And it doesn't even have to be funny, man. It could just be straight fucking steamy romance.
So
I'll
you're a
be there.
hopeful romantic. You're a
Yeah,
hopeful romantic deep down.
exactly.
Okay.
And part of the show is about her being one of the main characters and another guy kind of like separating. And at the end of I'm gonna just kind of spoil it earlier, but
Spoiler alert. We're here.
at the end of the last episode, they kiss and they make up. Like everyone's like, that's so cheesy, but I'm like, oh, this is fucking amazing.
Your
Like
heart's
this,
melting
I know,
watching it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that's part of the main
That's
reason
part of the
why.
draw. Got you.
Yeah, and then uh from there, there was like fucking chatter here and there about driver's license, and then she came out with it. And I listened to it, and I was just like, aside from me, like just being a fan, like honestly, I was like, this is such a good song. The hook of it towards the end, it was like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean it's a good song. She does a good performance. The production's really good. The music video is cool too. I think it was just all around really well done.
Yeah.
Ariana Rita in the comments says, "I'm sure Paramore does not care at all," and I agree. I think she's probably right. Um, Now, this a little off kiltered here, but what's the worst candy you've ever eaten?
Worst candy?
Yeah.
First of all, I don't like candy, but I'll tell you either way. I'm not a sweet person. Or I'm
Okay.
not a person into sweets. All right, I'm a sweet person. So worst candy I've ever eaten? It has to be anything with dark chocolate. Tell you
Dark
that much.
chocolate.
Anything
Okay.
like you see those like fancy like boxes of chocolates when you go into the store. They're all like fucking fancy. Got
Like the
this caramel
expensive
color.
stuff,
Yeah,
the Ghirardellis or
yeah.
Lindt chocolate and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not
whoever
big into
made
those.
those, like whoever made those could die, and I wouldn't lose sleep. Like it just, like honestly, like they're so fucking nasty to me. But
Mhm.
I just don't eat candy in general. But
That's fair. Anybody in the chat, what's your least favorite candy? Let me know.
yeah,
Mine would probably be. I'm trying to think. I feel like McKenna, you would know what my least favorite would be more than I would, because I like don't know what it would be that I would turn away. Because I have a sweet tooth. I have a bad sweet tooth. So
oh
like,
man,
I I will, even if I'm eating like, especially if I'm at like a stretch where I'm eating really healthy, the end of a night, like I like am craving some fun. I'll eat a whole box of Oreos in one sitting, dude. If I could, if it was there, or like funfetti frosting, like that's my shit. I could just eat spoonfuls of that. It's messed up. Trying to think off the top of my head. I know a ton of candy I love. What's a candy I really don't like? Probably something chocolatey as well. I'm not big into chocolate. I mean, I like a lot of chocolate as well. I just there's like when they do start doing weird shit with it, it's not for me. I'm trying to think of what's a good example of something like that. Nuts, but I mean, yeah, I guess something with nuts. Maybe like a Hershey's almond, Hershey's and almond, but that's kind of lame. Almond Joy, that's what it is. Fuck Almond Joy. That's what I fucking
Ah,
don't like,
fuck
dude.
you, man. That's all I gotta say to that. All
Oh
right.
no, you like Almond Joy?
Yeah, I love almond joy, man. And
Oh
and
no.
so it's like I'll tell you what. It's not that I don't have a sweet tooth. It's just that I can't handle it. So I'll take like I see people who eat like fucking 5 chocolates. I'm like, how do
Yeah.
you do that? I could eat one. I love
Oh yeah.
Kit Kat. I'll eat a Kit Kat and I'll be like, cool. But to eat 3 or 4, like, it's just too much for me. I'm not. I'll get a little bit like queasy. But almond joy. That's
Okay, so you're
what's
big
the
almond.
beef, bro? What's the
So,
beef, man?
man, it's just not for me. I don't know. It's got coconut in it too, right? It's got like fake coconut or whatever in there. That's not. I'm just not. I mean, it's just like a shitty coconut. Whatever. But yeah, I'm not like big into that. And I'm trying to think. I did a candy tier list, like a Halloween candy tier list, later last year. Well, last Halloween. And Tootsie Rolls, man. My sister loves Tootsie Rolls, but I fucking hate Tootsie Rolls. They're just, cause that's like what you're talking about right there about like not wanting to eat a bunch of chocolate. Like it is the epitome of that with one fucking Tootsie Roll. You're just
Yep.
chewing it and you're chewing it and you're just living in that moment. You and that fucking gross piece of chocolate in your
Yeah.
mouth over and
Well,
over again.
what's that other candy? It's called like Laffy something. That's like the
Laffy
same.
Taffy.
Yeah.
It's a similar
Fuck,
thing,
bro.
but it see
It's
for
like
me at least it being sometimes like sour. I hate the banana shit from them, but other flavors I'm cool with.
like I'll tell you what. Like when I used to go to elementary school and it was like Halloween or Valentine's, and someone would give me a Laffy Taffy or Tootsie Roll,
Yeah.
like their parents would get a stern talking to. Like I'd have to march out there and be like, "What the fuck is this shit? Like,
Why
why are
you
you giving your child Laffy Taffy for? Like, why don't you,
They
get
don't
some
like
good
their
shit?"
kids. That's what it is. They just
Exactly.
don't like them.
I mean, like, is it come out to them right now? Like, it's just
Yeah, they're
insane.
not big fans of their children. But you know what? It's getting to that time of the year again where people are going to be having bonfires and whatnot, hanging out outside. And I got a recipe that I came up with last summer for when you're out by the fire this year. You're gonna have to get yourself, if they still even have them. There are these Oreos called the most stuffed Oreos. They're like, think of a double stuffed Oreo,
Okay.
then think of that times like 4. It is
Okay.
like ridiculously stuffed Oreo. And this is how bad my sweet tooth is. I'll take 2 of those. So we got 2 most stuffed Oreos. And then I'm taking the fat marshmallows that like they make for
Okay.
s'mores and whatnot, right? So I'm taking that.
Okay.
And then we're taking 4 little well, like a regular, you take a Hershey's bar, you're taking 4 little of the squares, putting 2 on each side. You're putting the Oreo, Hershey's, and then the marshmallow in between, and using the Oreos as your like graham cracker, if you would. And it's
Okay.
a s'moreo, and it's the ultimate s'moreo. And you eat that, you get diabetes, but it's great. It's a great experience. It is really phenomenal, and I recommend everybody does it because it's a
Alright,
spiritual experience, and it takes you to another dimension.
So you might hate me for this, but I hate s'mores. I hate
As long as you don't hate Oreos, then we're good.
All right, listen, man. I only have like 2 Oreos. Just anything that having to do with fucking bonfires and just marshmallow, I don't count me out. Like I don't want
You're
that shit
not
stuck
big
to
into
my teeth and-
bonfires?
Okay, listen. Listen.
Everybody
most of-
loves, if you're a podcaster, you gotta love sitting around a bonfire and just talking shit and just shooting the
Listen.
shit with somebody.
most of my best acid experiences have been by bonfires. Okay, so I'm not gonna say I don't like them, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
like if I'm sitting there and you whip out a marshmallow, I'm gonna be like, just keep it to yourself, buddy, because like that shit gets stuck all over my teeth. I hate the dentist. I don't want an incentive to go back.
Especially if you're on acid, it's not gonna help the experience either. You're probably like,
Yeah,
bro, I'm in
exactly.
another dimension right now. Stop trying to put this. Like, I don't even know what marshmallows are made of. Don't put that in my mouth. Like, I don't want that. I see where you're coming from.
And same with donuts. I don't like donuts. Buy a
See,
box.
I gotta
Yeah,
eat
buy a
100
box
of them.
Yeah, no. Well, good. I will predict this now. You will tap out at 65.
Okay. Well, I have a partner
My
doing it with
prediction.
me, so I might be able. If I can do 65 just me, then I'll be. That means we're gonna finish because it's gonna be me and one other person.
Okay.
So then we'll be good. Hopefully I can get that much. You have much faith in me. I don't know if I can get that far. But What was I gonna say? You mentioned being on an acid trip, and I know we had talked before, and some people are gonna be like, "Whoa, they're really switching gears here." But we talked before on your podcast, and you're very open with it. And we talked before we went live here. You kind of struggled with some substance abuse stuff, in your past. Do you want to kind of take us through a little bit of that and explain how you've gotten to the point that you're at now?
Well, yeah. But what do you want to know?
Well, I
Because
want to know. So you mentioned before that you had some issues with, I believe you said cocaine, right?
right, right, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so how old are you now?
I'm 18.
You're 18 now.
Yeah, I'm 18.
Okay. And so you had issues with cocaine when? How young were
Okay.
you?
All right. So I had started around maybe like 15. But didn't progress super heavy until like 16
How do you get
around there.
exposed to that at 15?
Okay. Listen, I don't want to. Before I even say anything, I don't want to sound like the kind of guy who knows everything. But
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you one because I'm about to sound like an old man talking about. I'm about to tell you that this is shit I've come to learn. I saw with my own eyes. I've seen with my own eyes at the young age. Thank God. And definitely the people we hang around with. Like, I believe in that saying so much. You are who you hang around with. Like
Yeah, people say like you're the average of like the five people you spend the most time with.
it's so true. It's like that. That's why I got hooked on what I was hooked on, man. Just
Hmm.
bad friends, bad influences, and it's sort of I smoked a lot of weed and stuff like that. And then just came to one day I was smoking with one of my friends, and he whipped out some wicked shit. I knew what it was in my head because I've never done it, but I've definitely the people have been around. I've seen it, and it wasn't cocaine necessarily. It was actually meth,
Oh my
and
gosh. Okay.
yeah, and and don't before you start judging me. All right,
I'm not judging you. I
no, not
mean,
you. I'm talking about anyone who watches this. 'Cause everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, like fucking dumbass, shouldn't have done it." But I'll tell you one thing, man. It's after so much of smoking weed, man, you get tired of it, and you're like, "Man, I want something else," and that's
okay.
what contributed to that. And it was he was like, just take a hit of this, and I took a hit, and one thing led to another. It was like the best fucking thing ever, man. Like I took one hit, and it was like it
Well, it
was
was a step up from what you were doing, right? Your
yeah,
body was a
because
different high.
when when you're smoking weed, it's a downer, but then when you're smoking meth, it lifts you up. And so it's like this makes no sense, but it's like if God had opened up the curtains and just all the sun lit in, like I was just bright, man. Everything was so bright. I was like, it was amazing, and that's when it starts, man.
And
That's
so it was you kind of were just, man, you're like a guidance counselor's dream right now. Like they need to
yeah,
bring you in when they do their talk, because everybody goes like the guidance counselor's always like, weed is a gateway drug, and everyone's like, oh fuck you, bro. And then here you are explaining like a
yeah,
situation where you were just kind of always smoking with some friends, and then that happened. Not to say, I'm someone who's I don't smoke myself and never have, but I'm not against people smoking weed. I think there's a lot of benefits that come out of it. I think if it's right for you, do it. I try not to judge people on that, but so you're around this group of people, and this happens, and it kind of is like a level up for you almost in your substance use.
hmm
When do things start to not feel like God is blessing you? When does it start to feel like, oh shit, I'm doing meth? Like, as crazy as that is to say, and I know we've joked about this in private, so I don't mean to like make it sound
no,
like a
no,
joke,
no,
but
no.
when does it start to hit like, oh shit? Because like even saying that sentence, it's like crazy to a lot of people,
Right.
myself included. Like even saying, like, I couldn't imagine, like, man, I'm like saying I've smoked meth. Like that's a crazy thing to get to, right? But it seems so regular when you're around a group of people like that facilitates it.
Yeah, and before that, I just want people to know if you can't joke about it, then don't talk about it. I think that's a big thing. I think you,
Yeah, we talked about that in
yeah,
in private. If you can't laugh at yourself or anything you've done, then what's
yeah,
the point of being here, man?
exactly. But back to what you were saying, it actually became so. At first, it was crazy because I was like, man, I can't believe I'm smoking meth. But that became so regular to me. I was just like, oh shit, I'm gonna go smoke some meth today. Like it was just it became so like, all right, let's just go do it, and uh I was still at school at the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it got to the point where you didn't want to miss out, right? Like, well, I'm not gonna smoke meth during school. Like, where the fuck am I gonna do? Like, it's a whole fucking process. Like, to those who don't know, like, you gotta heat the fucking thing up, and it's like it's a whole process. So then, you start finding like much more convenient ways to do it, and that's when another friend, which was not now at this point, I was like 16, gonna turn 17. Another friend kind of like is like, hey, you should dabble with cocaine. Like, it's a lot more straightforward. Put it in your wallet, take out your wallet, sniff from your wallet, you'll be fucking set. It's like,
Wow.
okay,
Yeah.
well, it's why not? And so I started dabbling with that, and that sort of took me away. That's what I sort of really uh fell in love with. Now, there's a big thing between, because these are uppers, these are all uppers, these keep you up for days.
Mm-hmm.
Many people like to do it because it makes them so productive.
Yeah.
They like to do it because it's like, oh, wow, I just did all this and that. I like to do it because I love the hallucinations. When you're up, look at me. I'm a skinny guy, man. So it doesn't take much to knock my ass down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go maybe like 3-4 days without sleeping, you're bound to see some shit. And I have. And I I've been, let's see, I've been in my living room, had no sleep for like 4 or 5 days. I'm just like,
Yeah.
man. And I
Does this happen regularly? You just like are missing out on sleep like this to try and hallucinate, or is it not? Is it kind of
well,
by chance that it happens?
it happens when your intake becomes so high.
Okay.
So it's like yeah, and so at this point but you don't even know it's been 5 fucking days. I swear to God. In my head it's been like 2 days, man. In my head I just woke up, but it's been like so fucking long.
Still 2 days without sleeping, bro. I'd be screaming at people. I'd be irritable as fuck. I'd be falling asleep in my car. Like that's insane. I've had friends that have dealt with some stuff similar, and other friends that just deal with like really bad sleep apnea, and they just like don't sleep. I mean, I myself am really bad at have issues falling asleep, but like, dude, I couldn't imagine. I mean, did you ever see like a hallucinated version of yourself being like, "Yo, John, go to fuck to bed. It's 5 days in, bro. What are you doing?"
um okay, it's gonna sound weird, but I would actually see, like, how do I put this? Like little people, like
Okay.
dwarfs,
Okay.
if you're following me around, man.
Holy shit. So you like when you're hallucinating 5 days without sleep, you turn into Snow White.
Like,
Is that
yeah,
what happens?
fuck yeah,
And they're
exactly,
just
man.
cleaning up your house and they're just getting you
But
ready.
like, it's cool because now when like I'm sober or whatever, I look back at this, and I'm the kind of person who's like, well, maybe that was a sign, right? Maybe these little dwarves had a fucking purpose for being there. I saw them for a reason, maybe. And it's like they wouldn't say nothing to me, but it was just so fucking weird because they were so real, man. Like, it wasn't like when you're on acid or LSD, it's fake because it's like as vivid as it seems. Like you're seeing colors and shit that it's just impossible to see. But when you're like on coke or meth, it's just so fucking real, man. It's
So
like,
where does like the I feel like we're painting these substance abuses in a really positive light. When does it get bad? When does it start taking the toll on your life? Because I don't want, obviously it did because you had to move past it. But like when did that start to happen? Because I feel like
um,
obviously there is from any drug the high is a high. It's for a reason. It's
exactly,
called that for a reason.
exactly.
It's the part that is the appeal, but there's the consequences of said high. Is
Mhm.
that what kind of how did that start affecting your life, and when did you start seeing effects of that?
So I started sort of seeing the change when I started seeing the change in myself, in a sense that I wasn't acting like myself anymore after a while. I was getting very like hot-headed. I was getting very ballsy, I guess would be the thing.
Taking
And
some risks you don't normally take.
yeah, and with no regard to the consequence, until I find myself in a position where I'm like, fuck, and this happened. I don't want to get too much into it, but like with a lot of shady people and stuff like that. So,
And you kind of
but
then you had like that realization, like, oh shit, like that self-awareness to be like, oh, I'm around this
Yeah.
group of people. I would have never thought that I would be here.
Like,
And
yeah, it was one thing doing like this shit with like buddies
yeah.
compared to now like doing it with people. I'm like, fuck, I don't even know you, man.
Hmm.
But aside from that, physically, it was when you start coming down to ask me or try to picture how you would feel, how your body would feel after 5 days of no sleep on being like on the top of the mountain to now you're just going
Oh,
down.
dude, I can't imagine. I can't imagine with like substances involved. I mean, I know, dude, this last week I barely slept at all because we literally, I got done with the show on Monday. Well, just to let people know, and shout out to everybody who did. I know we're in the middle of a very serious conversation, but shout out to everybody who's been checking out the stuff we released this week. It was like what I'm about to say on Sunday. Had to finish this track that I was putting out this week, and usually I'd be putting song like I submit it much earlier than that. So I had to mix and master the song like that night. The guy came in to finish his part. Shout out Jay Rachi, and he finished his part. I couldn't even get it finished. I had to work on it up until like it was like 2 in the morning of on Monday, and I submit it, and then I sleep in as much as I can the next day. But I forget what I had to take. I had shit to take care of before the podcast, so I'm doing shit whatever all day. Then I get here, do the podcast with my friend Lewis. It was a great episode, and the next day, so after he leaves, I'm like continuing because I've been planning doing a video shoot for that
Right.
song I just submitted.
Which
But
was really good, by the way.
well, thank you. I
Yeah, it
appreciate
was really
that.
good, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody who was involved too. It was a lot of fun putting that together. But so I end up not going to sleep till it was like I got back in my house at like 1:30 or like 2 a.m. And because I was talking with the cinematographer and working out all the details of pre-production, where we're gonna be going, like what we're gonna be doing, and like what we can do. And I get home, and then our cats are going crazy, and I don't end up falling asleep till like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I had to be up at 5 to go get the cinematographer because he's like 45 minutes away. So and he doesn't have a car, so I had to go get him. So then I get up at 5 to go get him, and so I haven't slept at all, and I go get him, and then we shot from. I picked him up at 6 because it was like took me like 45 minutes to get to his house, and so it was like around 6 when I got him, and then we were working on the video shooting wise and like filming everything until like 9 o'clock at night, and then we finished. We hung out for a minute, ate some food, and I drove him home. And then the next day I was editing for like 9 hours. Like I woke up early because I needed to get to editing, so I couldn't even sleep. I had to like 5 hours of sleep, and then I'm editing for like 8-9 hours. Had some shit I had to take care of. So then I get back, and I'm editing all night until like 2 in the morning, and then I again tried to sleep in a little bit on Thursday, but I ended up only sleeping until like 9, and so I like gotten like 5 hours, 6 hours the whole week, or something like that. It was like terrible, and I ended up getting everything done. It was great, it was awesome, but it was a fucking lot, and I know how my body felt during that, so I couldn't imagine adding like a layer of from substance as well, and like feeling like really locked in for one moment, and then you're when you skip out on sleep, there's like a saying they told us in like health class where it's like every hour you miss, it's like a brick going into a backpack. Like your body doesn't forget that. Like
Yeah.
you might be like, oh yeah, no, fuck that, like whatever. Your body knows it needs that sleep. So you can miss 1 hour tonight, and then 1 hour tomorrow. You're carrying around 2 extra bricks. It's slowing you down, and I couldn't imagine like having like 20 or so bricks in that bag like you probably had, and but not feeling it at all because you're on something, and then the second that goes away, it's like all 20 of them hitting you at once.
I'll give you a good example. Or not, well, not example, but I'll tell you something weird. When so this is gonna okay, and I feel bad saying this because I'm fucking like showing you the good side of it, but I'll get to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bad side right now. But when there comes a point where you're doing so much coke, man, and this could just be me because everyone's different. You feel like you're walking on air. You don't feel the sole of your feet touch the ground anymore. You feel like you're walking. You're just walking on
Jesus.
air.
So
yeah,
enough,
exactly.
If you do enough cocaine, it will turn you into Jesus. Is that
Exactly.
that's what you're saying?
Just
Wow.
don't throw me into water because I can't swim. So
Well, you float. You'll just walk right over it. Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids, please. I already have a
Yeah.
highlight on this channel of people thinking I'm telling them to take melatonin gummies, and it's not the case.
Listen,
but
if if you take the drug will take you. Period. That's it. That's how it is.
So when
Because
does that start to happen for you then?
physically, when I was coming down,
And
uh,
when did you decide to get clean then?
I think it was a cycle. Because when you come down, you don't want to feel the come down, right? So you get high again. And
Hmm.
like you got to keep that cycle going. And trust me, it'll get to the point where you're gonna do so much. You're just kind of like, my dad's always said your body's like a computer. You're gonna do so much, it's just gonna crash. And you're gonna shut off.
Hmm.
And in this case, that's like, an overdose or whatever. But it it the way I was feeling physically, the way I was looking, because at this point I was already going to school. I was walking to school. My teacher, I'm not gonna mention his name, but he was super cool. He would kind of look at me and he'd say like, you look like shit, man. Like
Hmm.
I got long hair. I got like I was fucking I had fucking I was just I don't know. I just looked like shit.
Hmm.
And these are signs that started telling me, hey man, I think I need to take a step back. I would walk into school, I'd be so coked out. I'd be like, fuck, I'd be hearing shit. I'd be hearing voices. I'd be like looking, and this teacher's like, "You all right, man?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm cool." And he'd pull me aside and be like, "You can't be here, dude. Like you're just so
You
like he knew
fucked
what was
up.
going on."
Yeah, he
Yeah,
knew you were fucked up.
yeah, and so but they were all cool, and he was like, "Let's just leave for now." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And I'd be walking to the Circle K, like sniffing shit out of my wallet on the way there. Like, just it was so bad, man. That's in the way I was feeling physically. These different signs of people telling me like, hey, you're here at the wrong moment was a sign that I needed to get clean. And and to some it may not sound like a big fucking realization, but to me at the moment it was. And I kind of told myself I'm too young for this.
So it kind of just took you a lot of people in your life that are, just around you maybe, and it took you noticing that they noticed
Mm-hmm.
to kind of be like, okay, maybe I need to steer the ship the other direction.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
had an amazing group of buddies. None of these guys contributed to me getting involved with this in the first place,
Hmm.
but these guys, really good friends of mine, they'd always laugh about it. That I'd always be, as they say, tweaked out around them
Hmm.
and stuff like that, and they still accepted me the same. And so yeah, the big step was to get clean, and I did. Again, this teacher will remain nameless, but another teacher sort of helped me through the process. I reached out to him, and he sort of helped me out as well. So he knows who he is, but
What's the process look like for those? Obviously, I'm
um,
not aware, so I wouldn't know.
right. So it kind of depends how you want to take it or what route you want to take. I did like NA meetings, and a little bit of rehab work and just stuff like that. But NA meetings are the fucking best. Because like if I sat here and I started telling you what it feels like getting off of drugs, some of the shit I say you'd be like, well, that makes no fucking sense. But
Yeah.
until you're around a group of people that know what it's like,
Hmm.
then you will feel that sense of comfort like that. You could share what it's like. And once you share, it's everything, man. So like, to people who hold it in, don't hold it in. Like find someone you can confide in, and then that they will understand you, and just let it out, because that shit will eat you alive. And
Yeah.
that was happening to me, not being able to tell people.
I could imagine. I mean, it's a very personal, inner struggle that you're going through,
Mm.
and I bet it's probably really hard to even to put that to words in the first place, and then probably even harder to put that, to kind of go through the mental um, hurdles that you'd have to finally say something, and then how hard it would be to have somebody not really understand it. So I totally get by being around it, a group of people that also get it, how that would be helpful. That makes sense.
Yeah. And but yeah, that was only the first step. So I did all the NA meetings, and I got clean. But once you get clean, then the real battle begins, into steering away from it as much as possible.
Hmm.
And that's when I'm going to say that I found this book that I could honestly say sort of changed my life, man. And it's called The Book of Five Rings.
Okay.
And I see it on my feed on Instagram, and that sort of it was it, man. I just read that, and I've never read a book that just sparked so much light in me. And it's because of that book that I will say that I so far have stayed sober. The teachings of that book that have contributed to my sobriety today. Um,
Wow,
so
that's a crazy book then, man.
yeah, so but yeah, that's sort of my journey of addiction, and I'm so thankful that I lived it at such a young age when I didn't have much to lose compared to when you dabble with that shit, like when you got a full-time job where you're trying to work, like you have so much more to lose. So
mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I lived that experience at such a young age,
You're
and it's
past it now. You know, you beat it. That's.
yeah,
I mean, you're still obviously you said like the work is you still have to deal with putting in the work every day, but it's really cool that you've been able to kind of overcome that and not let something like that stop you. Especially I know you said you're happy that it happened to you younger as opposed to older, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who might see like the age attached to it and be like, oh, they might think like, well, I'm already addicted to this and I'm whatever age, I'm young, I'm 15, I'm already addicted to this, or 16, like what's my life going to be like if I already got addicted to drugs, blah 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 blah.
right.
But even they can take your story as an example. It doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean that's what you're going to be, or that your life's not going to be successful. Like you get to decide that, and you did. And that's what I really applaud you for that. I know we talked about it a little bit briefly, but I'm kind of glad you got to explain it a little bit more, and I really appreciate you opening up about that.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Yeah, so it I guess to anyone who is like sort of going through that, I guess the best thing I could say is find someone that you trust and ask for help. And I know that's probably the toughest fucking part about it, because you have to accept it. The only way you'll get clean is if you accept you're an addict.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's like you'll never ever get over it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you have to find that person that you trust, and once you accept it, have them help you, because at least in my opinion, I was, you know, being an addict, I don't think I would have ever taken the leap to call these meetings and stuff like that while being addicted. I would have never done that. So
Yeah.
definitely find that person that can help you, and it'll get better, man. That's all I could say. Because
Yeah, you
definitely
gotta
getting
you gotta
clean
know it will
is,
get better. I
yeah.
think that's the first step, like you're saying. Deborah Freeman says, "Hey guys, how's it going? Miss you guys." Shout out to Deborah. Also says Kentucky had a lot of meth. I have to chase them off. It has gotten less here by us, but they know, because they know that we won't put up with it. Yeah, I know Kentucky has a lot of issues with stuff like that. Edith Rita says, such a moving story. So glad to hear that you've overcome that and keep building your life. So again, I really do appreciate you sharing that, and I think that's incredible, especially at such a young age. Being able to have that foresight, even though it took a couple people kind of pestering you about it, like, yo man, you don't look so good, but to even see that when you're in you're in the thick of it, and
Mm-hmm.
you're this young man, and to like notice like, this isn't who I want to be. I'm gonna change that. I
Exactly.
really have a lot of respect for that, man, and I appreciate you explaining that. That's crazy. It's crazy that you were able to overcome that, and I'm proud of you from afar, for real.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, that definitely means a lot. So now it's yeah. So I have to say, I have to go back to that book, man. That fucking book, man. It changed shit. Like,
Was
uh,
it simple? I feel like what I've been saying. I said this earlier on the, or not this podcast, but I've said this before on the podcast. I think it was more so about like financial responsibility. We had an episode with one of my buddies who's into finance, Roran Finney. Shout out to him. And I think he had mentioned something about budgeting, and we were talking about how it's really simple. And I was kind of drawing a parallel with the rest of life, where I think a lot of things, whether it's success, whether it's getting clean, whether it's run the pot, it's simple, man. But it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it's easy. Like you said, it's as simple as being able to find somebody that you could confide in, that is not going to judge, is going to be there for you with your best interest at heart, and it's as simple as that. But that doesn't mean that thing is easy.
no.
It's very clear cut. That's what I got to do, but that doesn't mean it's easy to fucking do. That's a hard thing to do when you're in a spot like that.
Yeah,
So
and
it's crazy.
that's one thing I will tell people over and over again. Like, me taking the step to get clean, that's part of the process, which is why I always tell people you have to be in love with the process to see the end results. No matter what it is you're doing in life, getting clean, going to work, like, it doesn't matter what it is. You want to work out, but you don't want to wake up at 7 a.m. to get in the morning jog. You have to be in love with that, man, because it's the only fucking way you'll be able to get more fit. And it's like the same thing to go to work. Sometimes I gotta wake up at fucking 5, 6 a.m. But like, I want money. What's part of
Hmm.
the process, man? You gotta be in love with it to get that money, man. So you gotta go after it. So I think that's just life, man. Be in love with the process, and you will see the end results, man. I've seen the end results.
I think that's I think that's a great way to put it, man. And you're still young. You're 18. You got plenty more results
Yeah,
to see. So it's not the end. You got plenty more. You got the Common People podcast. So we'll plug that again. Common People podcast is everywhere, right? Everywhere you stream
yeah,
podcasts, right? Which
yeah.
that's really awesome. And is there anywhere that people should follow you at that you would prefer to send them over to?
Instagram, Common People Podcast '01 on Instagram. And I don't have a website yet. I'm still trying to
Okay.
find someone to get it done for me, but there will be a website soon. But yeah, so far right now, you could just check it out on Spotify. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that stuff. And I also
What?
want to shout out. I want to shout out a couple people.
Yeah.
I want to shout out. First of all, Grease Skull Tattooing. I just got a tattoo, and it has to do with that book. So shout out to them. They're a family-run business. So if you're in the IE Ellen Empire where I live, whenever you see this, go check it out, man. Amazing people. So shout out to them, and shout out to my buddy Anarchy Gaming on Twitch. So
Anarchy Gaming. Cool.
Anarchy Gaming, and so
I'm gonna have to check out his stuff, see what's up.
yeah,
I'm
he
all
says
about
he's not
content
good.
creators.
He says he's not good, but the fucking guy is good. But yeah,
Okay.
Grease Skull Tattooing and Anarchy Gaming, go check them out. I know Grease Skull Tattoos on Instagram, and so is Anarchy Gaming.
Very cool. You have anything else that you'd like to let the people of Detox know before we end up wrapping here?
Uh, well, I shut it out. You sort of shutted me out. But just I don't know, man. I guess I'm gonna end it off with a bit of advice. I'm young, and I hate talking like this, man, because I am young. So it's like it's gonna be older fucking people that have seen more. But from what I've seen, all I can say is it gets better, man. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Always. Doesn't matter how long it takes for you to see it, but there always is. You just gotta stay true to yourself, and you will see it.
That's awesome, man. There's a pessimist somewhere just shaking his head, but I love the optimism. I appreciate it. Well, I want to say thank you again, John, for being here.
Thank you
I
for
want to
having me, man.
absolutely, man. We'll have to do it again. I also want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in live. Shout out to everybody listening over on Spotify or if you're watching on YouTube the days after. I also want to say thank you to our patrons. They should be up on the screen right now. Shout out to all of them for supporting the channel. If you're ever wondering what I do or how I do some of the shit that I do with creating music and stuff like that, my patrons get exclusive access to how I create all my songs as well as some private rants and other behind the scenes videos. And we're actually developing a new private podcast that will be Patreon exclusive. I'm gonna have a couple co-hosts with me for that, so that'll be a fun new little project we're working on as well. So if you're interested, you can join at patreon.com/DarrenRita. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to all of that, and then we have other tiers as well with other various goodies. So shout out to them. Also want to say thanks again to Kenosha Auto Insurance for sponsoring this episode, and this has been the 99th episode of the Detox Podcast. We're going to be doing